Well, good morning and welcome to the June 22nd meeting of the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board. Carol, do you agree that we have a quorum? Thank you. All right, then we'll call the meeting to order. We will move to item 2 on the agenda, items for individual consideration. Item A under that, you've been furnished copies of the minutes of our previous meeting on May the 25th. Are there corrections or additions? It's been moved by Bob Nayland, seconded by D. Morales, that we approve the minutes as submitted. Are there further comments or questions? Cast your vote. Well, we're off to a great start. We unanimously approve the minutes. All right, that brings us to item B. David, you have the revenue and expenditure report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet the MAPS revenue and expenditure report for the period ending May 31st, 2023. On the revenue side for the month, $1,007. Fiscal year, $824,187, and total, $838,220,691. On the expenditure side for the month, $312,375. Fiscal year, $15,956,930, and total of $795,759,536. You also have the budget and obligations report in your packet in its usual form. If you have any questions, I can try to answer.
Questions for David? Shall we receive it? Zane Boatwright has moved that we receive and approve it. It's been seconded by Bob Nayland. Further discussion? Cast your vote. The item is passed. That brings us into item C. David?
Item C is recommend final acceptance of project M3P 016 WC 1000 SC 1073 MAPS 3 Lower Scissortail Park in Ward 6. So we opened the park last fall, but we've been working on what we call punch list items, and we've finally gotten those completed. And Gavin McMillan is here today to show you the success of the lower park, and we're here to accept this park.
Welcome, Gavin.
And thank you very much. As David said, yes, we're at final acceptance. It's a little bit of an anticlimax, but with supply chain issues, it took a little while just to do the last 1% of the park. But we're here, so in the interim time, it's given us the opportunity to think a little bit about what success means in a project, particularly in the public realm, as you're all doing here. And you know, there's the idea of the master plan, the original idea. Was it successful? The design and construction, was it successful? The park, in the upper park, it's had 5 years almost 5 years advanced start. In opening, has it been successful? And then, you know, what's left to come? So in the master plan, over a decade ago, you had the original idea of the opportunity that you all exploited with the interstate construction and the ability to turn Oklahoma Boulevard into an actual boulevard. And the idea of the core to shore was a brilliant idea. So you all can be proud of that, even before we got involved on this. But the master plan report was also a success in that it led to the construction of where we are now, of a park from core to shore. But it did in a way that allowed us to be flexible in updating in that decade period. We could change it and modify it, still keep the original intent, and keep everything up to date as things advanced. So it's amazing to see it come to fruition now. So we're very thankful for that, with both the upper and lower park intact. There's a few things along the way that are still embedded in the master plan, and these are still good ideas, but this is for another time, but still keep these in mind. Union Station is what was part of the master plan, and I'm happy to report that, you know, design is in progress now, and that will be one of the last things that will go before you all to approve the final plans and specs for that later. this year. The out parcel we were never able to get, but it's just sitting there, and it doesn't really matter until someone plans to build something on it, and then it may matter. It will look like the park is cut in half, but at the moment it's fine. The public art project for the lower park, the first round was delayed. The artist fell out. So I believe from Randy at Public Art, they're going to restart that quite soon, so that's good news. And last but not least, in the master plan, there was an option to updo Riverfront Park and actually make Scissortail Park connect to the river in terms of people actually getting down to the water's edge and being able to get in a ferry or a river cruise and go down to the First American Museum on the river. And that's still a valid idea, and I know there's other ideas out there now, and so maybe in the consideration of the U.S. Oklahoma idea, that idea is still out there and still current in the master plan. Design and construction, thinking about success for that, and I told the subcommittee yesterday, there's a famous park that was like a terrible experience for everyone that worked on it for over 7 years in planning and design and 7 years in construction. Everything was late, everything was over budget, lots of people got fired, lots of politicians got involved. But 5 years after it was open, there wasn't, everyone forgot about that. And 160 years later, nobody remembers that. And that's Central Park in New York. And it is an unusual aspect of the design and construction of parks. Parks are in our lives for a very short period of time, and we don't value them as part of the foreground in our life. They're always in the background. So they're very difficult to get through design and construction. But here was different. It has actually been a very successful process. And I'm just going to run through the lower park, the features of the lower park that were embedded in the design. And thank you very much for finding the ways to accept all the alternates in the bid. It's given the park a great start. The soccer field was obviously a big part of the plan. And we have got one synthetic field there, and we've got space for another one in the future. Right next door, it's grass now, but it can be converted to a synthetic field. And at nighttime is the place to be down there with the games going on. The sports pavilion has also been very successful. It's a great building sitting underneath it, and it's magical at night. I'm still amazed at that perf metal screen that looks solid during the day, but at night you can see right through it. And then in the lower park, we had existing trees, and we went to a great deal of trouble to preserve those, basically by moving the sports courts a little around to the corner. And it's made all the difference, keeping those trees. So I'm glad we all made the decision to do that. And the sports area as well, the rental on the courts has been amazing, and the response and the diversity that's happened there. And just under the trees with kids being able to just play around on logs and rocks that are there. And I'm sure Maureen and her team will come up with different ways to enliven this. The Whispering Pines area, which was basically for habitat in that interim space, is almost like the drawing. It's basically there for the birds and the pollinators that go with it. The promenade, continuing it all the way down to 15th Street, has been amazing. The fields in the middle, this is basically, we have the winding trail through the middle. It's become the kind of jogging route to run down from the city to the river and back again. And over time, Maureen and her crew will find out ways to program this with temporary things and activate it. They've just planted some more wildflowers around the pathway there, so that will be coming up before fall this year. The plaza with the building, as I said before, the artwork is still going to come, so stay tuned for that. But that little building is like an outpost way down the bottom of the park. But in the end, when people start to rediscover the river, it will find its own way into the area as well. But the hill itself is the place to be, and in fact, it's worn out on the top. Just so many people up there and enjoying the view back to downtown, but also to be able to see the river as well. So that's been extremely successful. So our construction cost was just over $25 million, 13 change orders that you approved along the way. Thank you very much. Construction period ended up at about 23 months. And I said yesterday we actually had as much rain as we did in the upper park, which was a real challenge. In the upper park we had rain, but it was all at the wrong time. But in the lower park we had different challenges, and one was the utility companies not getting out of the way in time. So our contractor, Wing Construction, to their credit, worked around those without stopping work, which is fantastic. We had COVID, of course, and supply chain issues. That's the only project I've been involved in 30 years where the roof went on last to the buildings because they couldn't get the material to do it. So credit to them and the remediation that we discovered along the way, and you all approved some extra money to get that out and safely into a landfill. So thank you very much. But I think the most valuable thing we were able to do in the staging of the upper and the lower park independently, because originally it was kind of perceived we'd be doing them back to back, but that allowed a lot of lessons to be learned, and to the MAPS team, the design and construction team, we were able to incorporate those lessons learned, and we were all rewarded for that with a partnering award that Todd accepted over in San Francisco just last month. So the design and construction was a success, unusually so. And so the upper park's been open for almost 5 years now. Maureen and her team have done an amazing job in terms of programming. It's incredible the diversity of not only the program but the people that show up as well. And it truly is a park for everyone. There is about 800,000 visits annually to the upper park. This is 2002 figures. It's got 4.8 rating on Google. Only the Oklahoma Museum and Memorial gets a greater rating. It has 280 events annually, which is, both the attendance and the number of events is higher than what we anticipated in the master plan. So credit to her and the people of Oklahoma City who are showing up. Over 6,000 kids have been hosted through the educational ranger programs there. They have 1,100 volunteers on the books. Not all those are active, but everything helps in terms of the maintenance of the park. It's been accredited as an arboretum, a level 2 arboretum, which is amazing. And just last month, it was voted best splash pad in the USA, which is good. So what's yet to come? The economic part of the master plan is still kind of in play. The idea of the core to shore and the park itself will, what's going on now is the land around the park is kind of being reevaluated, and the market it's kind of crazy right now with the pandemic and talking of recession or not recession. But eventually it will happen, and development will come around close to the park. And in a decade or so, there'll be neighbors to the park. So it'll become, rather than people driving here or finding other ways to get here, there'll be people that live within walking distance of the park. So the programming will actually be changed, and it'll be an amazing thing to see. The redevelopment will come, new neighborhood users, and hopefully some tourism synergies with the expansion of the riverfront, and maybe there's a way to get from here down to the First American Museum and up through Bricktown, so you can kind of do a whole loop for tourists or visitors to city. So that would be fantastic. So that's yet to come. And the other thing is just the natural capital to improve. It's kind of doing its job in the background now. It's cooling the city. The wind comes up from the south, as you know, predominantly. So over time, as that development happens, it'll become even more valuable, the park, in what it's doing for cooling the air, cleaning the water, and also mitigating against floods. The park, you may all remember, all the buildings we basically had to lift up to be above flood elevation. So the parks are designed to actually store flood waters, storing carbon over time, and then habitat. Over time, the habitat will be more and more critical to the city. And I said yesterday that over time, we do hope that someone will see the scissor tail actually in the park. Well, apparently it's already happened. Maureen's staff have reported that they've already seen a couple of scissor tails in the park visiting. So that's a good sign that things are on the right track. And hopefully one day they'll be able to nest there as well. So I think on all accounts, it's been a successful decade, and the investment that the city's made in it has paid off and will continue to pay off over the decades to come. So I thank you very much. On behalf of Mary Margaret Jones, couldn't be here today. She's the long-termer. I was only short-term for 7 years. But we've had an amazing time here. We've made some good friends here. And believe me, we sell the praises of the city, what you're all been able to achieve here. So thank you very much. And please accept the park as completed. Thank you.
Gavin, thank you. Questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. I do have a comment. Can you go just back a few slides to the kind of overall aerial map?
Can I go back?
Got to go all the way back through. There we go.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yes, that one
that
right
one?
there. Yes.
There we go.
So it's okay. So I appreciate what you're saying about future neighbors in that area that's just south of I-40 that says future neighborhood. I do just want to point out that there is a neighborhood there already. There are folks that have lived in that area that's kind of beige-ish brown for decades. And in fact, a woman who was on the previous public art committee to select the public art and hopefully will be able to participate again. She actually has lived in that neighborhood since she was a kid, lives with her parents. She's grown up, got married, raised her family there, and hopefully will be on the new committee to select the public art, because I know we had to kind of go back to the starting line there. But I always want to point out that while I appreciate what you're saying about new development, a lot of empty lots that are there, that there have been folks that have lived there and, kind of held down the fort, if you will, and are, from what I've heard, really appreciate and enjoy the park. But just I want to always acknowledge their investment of their time and their families in that area before, the city really started to think about what we could do to invest in that area, so that, they're excited to welcome new neighbors, but I always want to appreciate their just staying and investing their lives and families in Oklahoma City, in an area that the city didn't pay a lot of attention to for a long time. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Gavin for working with us for a lot of years, the Park Subcommittee, and I guess particularly for your patience and your skills in working with people like Anthony McDermott and myself, who I know can be a pain in the ass from time to time. You've handled us well, and we came all out of this unscathed, and you've done an incredible job, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael.
Anyone else? Well, I want to add my thank you, Gavin. It has been a long but wonderful journey. I hope that you will convey to Mary Margaret our thanks for the great skill and effort that your team put into this. It was obviously something that there's a lot to learn for all of us, but the blend of trying to create a space where people would make long-term investments, but also would be a park for everyone, and that it would be something that everyone in our community could enjoy. I know that you already know this, but the Philharmonic is performing there, the ballet is performing. There are things going on there and people getting to participate in those things that might never have occurred without the city's investment in this park for everyone. And to you and Mary Margaret and the whole team, I just want to offer our thanks for a fantastic effort, and as Mike said, for being patient with us. We had lots of questions, and there were lots of things to consider, and you guys did it in a very diplomatic and wonderful way. So many thanks.
Thank
Shall
you very
we
much.
accept the park?
So moved. Oh, I guess it's not.
Been moved by Bob Nayland, seconded by Michael Dover, that we accept the park. Before you cast your ballot, I can't help but remember the wonderful work that Kim has done on this. Mike was on the vice chair of the committee, but Kimberly Lowe did a fantastic job leading the effort for our Citizens Advisory Board and chaired that committee, and her efforts should be noted. I think, as we decide to vote to accept the park. With that, will you cast your vote? It has been unanimously accepted. Thank you, Gavin. Our best to Mary Margaret.
All right, thank you, Tom. We'll
Yes.
see you for maps 10.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then that brings us to item D, David.
Item D is recommend approval of final plans and specifications to be advertised for bids, project M3T007, maps 3 Katy Trail connections, vicinity of Northeast 10th Street, between Graham Boulevard and Windermere Avenue, and vicinity of 23rd and southbound I-35 Service Road, and project M3T008, the maps 3 Air Depot Trail, Air Depot Boulevard between 59th and I-240, wards 4 and 7. So recall that we were fortunate enough to have excess money with the trail projects, and the subcommittee went through a lot of discussion on expanding the trails and continuing to spend that money with trails, and ultimately this is where we've ended up. So we've got final plans coming here today. Chris Russell from Team Engineers is here to give you an overview of these plans.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Final plans and estimate for the subject projects. Just to recap, you guys have seen this presentation before, very similar. There are 3 locations. We've got Katy Trail connection at Northeast 10th Street. There's 2 connections designed for here. One on the south side, that's our base bid, and one on the north side, that's alternate 1. There's 1 connection up at Northeast 23rd Street, which is the base bid there. And then for Air Depot Trail, like David said, it runs from I-240 interchange north a little over a mile to Southeast 59th Street. And that has the base bid. That's a long stretch of that 1¼ mile. There's also an alternate 2, which is the trail wayfinding signage, which has been designed in a previous project by the city. And then bid alternate 3, which I'll get into more detail later, but adds about another 350 feet of 12-foot wide trail. There's just a mention of that trail wayfinding signage, and then the overall construction budget, just over $2.2 million. So just to orient ourselves, starting with Northeast 10th Street, again, that south side connection in yellow, that's the base bid, north side's the bid alternate 1. At 23rd Street, it's on the north side of the road, next to an open field, so room to work. And then along Air Depot, so north is to our right. At the far left side of this picture, we start by picking up the Tinker Draper Trail, cross over, hop over to the other side of the road to the west side of the road, and then run north the whole way. As we continue north, we cross under the I-240 bridges, as well as a BNSF railroad bridge. So going through the typical sections, this is what we came to after working with the Parks Department. This is nearly identical to the Greenway Trail project that's out there on the north side of the river now. So it's 6 inches of concrete over 4 inches of ag base. Here specifically is the Katy Trail typical, so it's just open section. Air Depot is identical, except that it's primarily at the back of curb because of the cramped corridor with right-of-way and utility constraints, but otherwise same thickness. So going into the plan sheets, starting with 10th Street. So this aerial is on the north side of the bridge, looking south. So this will be where the base bid connection will tie in. As you can see in the aerial, it's next to a vacant field right now, or a vacant parking lot. So there's plenty of room to construct the trail and tie everything in. For the north side, very similar design. Both of these connections are about 300 foot long, but the north side has a little more difficulty in fitting everything in because there's an early education center right there, you can see in the aerial. And in between that education center and the existing trail is a channel that runs through there now. So to fit the connection, accommodate that channel, and not impact the school property right there, we had to include a retaining wall and some drainage structures. All that increased the cost of that north connection, which is what moved it into an alternate 1. Up at 23rd Street, very similar design, a little longer, 350 feet. Up near the road where the trail ties in to the existing sidewalk, the trail has a little bit of a jog in it. That's to fit in between this retaining wall that runs alongside the road as well as a tree that's just off the left side of this image, but you can see it up here. We kind of jog around this. It's a very large tree that we're trying to preserve, and we have details in the plans to preserve that tree during construction specifically as well. Down where the connection will tie into the existing Katy Trail, there are a couple drainage structures out there now that we'd be tying into with the proposed drainage. This is the first one. This one will stay in place. This is the other existing structure, quite overgrown, but that'll get replaced with this construction. And then right here is where the connection would tie in. So we'll basically be cutting a hole through this retaining wall, tying the trail in, and then building 2 short retaining walls back to kind of hold back all that soil that's there now. And just an aerial, give you a different perspective of the same location. Going over to Air Depot, so we start by, like I mentioned before, picking up the Tinker Draper Trail. So this photo is on the south side of this interchange looking north. We're going to use a similar retaining wall and railing configuration that's out there now around this intersection. Really, the goal of that being to minimize impacts to the traffic signal equipment that's out there now. So we're just reducing costs as much as possible, reducing impacts to signal equipment. Then, as we hop over, like say, to the west side of the road and carry north, we'll cross under the I-240 bridges. What's out there now is a 6-foot sidewalk that ties into that slope wall, that concrete that's coming down off the highway to the existing sidewalk. So to fit a wider trail section, we have to cut into that slope wall, build a short retaining wall, and then we're going to also include a flume at the top side of that. That'll catch any of this sediment that's currently washing off of the highway now and currently on the sidewalk. So that'll get diverted so it's not on the new trail. And then throughout this process, we've worked with ODOT, kept them in the loop, so they're well aware of this project and on board with it. As we go north, we cross over Southeast 74th Street, basically sticking it back of curb. And here's just kind of a quick rendering or image of what it looks like north of 74th Street. So you can just kind of get perspective of fitting the 12-foot wide trail in and just the utilities and the right-of-way that we're dealing with. In this photo alone, we've got sanitary sewer, telephone, underground lines, gas lines, and overhead electric. So then we continue and we cross over a double 10x4 bridge box. The 12-foot wide trail will fit between the back of curb and that head wall of the structure, but to protect that 4-foot drop-off, we're going to include some railing along the top of that structure. And then just before we get to the BNSF bridge, the base bid for Katy Trail actually has it tying into the existing sidewalk just south of this signalized intersection. So the west leg of this intersection ties into Amazon warehouse. So as you can see from this photo, what's out there now is a 6-foot sidewalk as well as, like I said, some signal equipment because it's a signalized intersection. We've got 2 signal poles as well as a traffic controller cabinet. So the base bid will tie in south of this so that we're not impacting these equipments and incurring those costs, but included with bid alternate 3 is relocation of these signals and extending the 12-foot wide trail another 350 feet through this intersection. Then we would tie into the existing sidewalk that's just south of this railroad bridge so that we can utilize the existing retaining wall and sidewalk that's out there now, not get into that bridge's structure. North of the railroad bridge, pretty straightforward after that. The right-of-way opens up and there's plenty of room for the trail. And then as we get up to Southeast 59th Street, the trail narrows back up to about 10 feet through here because Air Depot starts to widen for the intersection. But, but then the trail will tie in through the pedestrian refuge island and then tie into the existing on-street bike lane that continues on Southeast 59th Street. So with that, just to summarize all the cost estimates, those top 3 are base bid items. So just to recap, that's the 10th Street South connection, the 23rd Street connection, and the vast majority of Air Depot's trail. That is all within about $3,000 within budget based on our estimates. You also have here the 3 bid alternate cost estimates. And then looking forward to our schedule. After today, going to council early July, receiving bids early August, late August, getting that awarded, and then notice to proceed early September. We have allocated about 8 months for construction. That's for everything, the base bid and all 3 bid alternate items. So that'll put estimated completion of construction for May 2024. And that's all I have. So thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
David, any comments about this?
No, sir. Well, yes, I am. I'm glad that we're able to continue to expand the trail system, that we were able to have this excess money.
Did you have a point? One question from me, David, looking at the time schedule that he's described and thinking about how we continue to, these projects are going to continue into 2024. Is there any thought given that the final approval of it might be given to the MAPS 4 Citizens Advisory Board, or how does this affect
I think that
our service?
if any of that, if there's a short, I don't know how to put it, but if the board ceases to function as they have been, I think it'll just go straight to council.
Okay. All right. Well, we haven't been looking at too many things that are going into 2024, and I just wanted for us to think about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Then, if there are no further discussion, it has been moved by Zane Boatwright, seconded by Joe Beth Hammond, that we approve. Cast your vote. It has been passed. Thank you very much. Let's move to item E, David.
Item E is recommend approval of change order number 4 and amendment number 4, project M3W005, maps 3 sidewalks, phase 5, 12 locations, an increase of $63,317.75, wards 1, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Likewise, we have excess money when we finished the sidewalks, the 5 phases of sidewalks that we have, and this isn't the first time. Obviously, this is the 4th change order, but what we're doing is continuing to expand the sidewalk construction and working with planning to find new locations for this contractor to continue working. We don't have enough money to justify having another contract and bidding that out. It just made sense to continue to show him places in the field where he could build, and we already had the quantities, so we're just amending those quantities and increasing that so we can spend this down and get more sidewalks.
Okay. Questions for David? All right. It's been moved by Bob Nayland, seconded by Zane Boatwright, that we approve this change order. Is there further discussion? Cast your vote. It has unanimously passed, David. Thank you. That brings us to Roman numeral 3, new business. Any new business by you, David?
No, sir.
Any member of the board? All right, then that takes us to item 4, subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittees that want to make a report today? All right. That brings us to item 5, David, an update by you on the program.
Real quickly, in addition to the projects we've talked about, we're still in construction on Wellness Centers 3 and 4. So those are going fine. And then we've also got design going on with Union Station. So those continue.
What I know that every time we've met and talked about Senior Wellness Centers 3 and 4, they've been subject to the delays in trying to get the material and things here. How are we doing on their schedules?
Wellness 3 is on schedule for, I believe, middle of July.
Wow.
To finish. Then there'll be punch list, and then we've got the operator to reestablish. So it'll probably be about September before that opens. Wellness 4 still got some challenges with supply chain, materials, weather. You know, this has been the rainiest spring and summer in quite a while. So, but we continue to work on that and push it and try and keep it going.
Thank you. Any other questions for David? Okay then, item 6 is informational items. So we're gonna have a new vice chair, huh?
Right, Zane Boatwright will be vice chair for this coming 12 months. It's been on a rotational basis, so it was just Zane's turn. I believe it's the second time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So we're counting on him to bring this ship home, huh?
Well, no, I think we're still counting on you, sir.
I think we're gonna count on all of us.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then also, I just wanted to point out that the city has annual contracts with a lot of companies to do a lot of things for what we would consider small amounts. And this is one of those that I authorized through one of those city contracts, and that was $56,000 to add some additional air conditioning at the Spark Cafe at the Upper Park. The air conditioning that we had in there just wasn't quite adequate to make sure that the kitchen stayed cool and the dining area. So we've added some air conditioning there, and I just want to point out that I authorized that through city contract.
questions? All right, well then that brings us to item 7. Any comments by members of the board? Bob?
I'd just make a quick comment to follow up on Gavin's presentation that our 8 and 5-year-old granddaughters live in Plano, Texas, which is a marvelous city with lots of parks and playgrounds and indoor and outdoor venues for play for kids. Their favorite park in the whole world is Scissortail Park. They love coming here
Isn't that great?
to play, especially in the upper park. We haven't spent much time yet in the lower park, but they love the upper park, and it is their favorite playground in the world.
That's wonderful. I've already told you, Beth, that my grandchildren love it, but other comments that I hear, I go to a fair number of meetings over at the Omni or the Convention Center, and the proximity, the connection to the park, as we all knew from the beginning, is rare in the world and our country to have hotels and convention centers connected to a park of this order of magnitude, and lots of great comments from out-of-town visitors coming about that combination of the two things located where they are. Okay, anybody else? All right then, that brings us to staff. Anybody on the staff? Carol, you have anything you want to tell us about today? All right. And are there citizens here who want to be heard? Well, if not, then let's show that we have adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all. Trying to get this wrapped up.
I was just going to note